Hi, I'm Alvin Pasaoa,
Hello, my name is Kevin Jefferies.
and this is the 635 podcast. The 635 podcast is about local politics, economics, and social and cultural issues in the Alvin Community College area. The views expressed on the show are those of the participants and do not reflect the views of Alvin Community College. And welcome to the podcast. I'm here with Kevin Jefferies.
Hello.
And what are we talking about today?
Spirit rocks, Albert. We're going to talk about spirit rocks.
Is that like a new age sort of mystical stone thing?
You know, it certainly sounds like it. But apparently these are boulders that until recently were on the campus of the University of Texas at Dallas, were a place where students were encouraged to engage in discourse of different types, but it was recently used to, based on events, take sides with Israel or with Hamas in the conflict, the latest flare-up of the conflict in the Middle East. So the administration decided to remove them. And I was thinking about that because the idea of political discourse on campuses is something that's bandied about quite a bit. There's actually a policy. We recently had some trainings we had to do every few months or a year. We have to do that, and so this is one of the things we had to look at to kind of understand exactly what the extent of student rights are, what the limitations are as well too, how that relates to law that ultimately goes to the decisions of the United States Supreme Court. So I thought this was an interesting way of contextualizing that.
All right, so let's set this up. What school are we talking about, and what exactly is a spirit rock?
The University of Texas at Dallas is the school. Remember, it's a system, a secondary system. You know, it's not at the par of the University of Houston, but it's we accept its existence.
Out in California, we had our hierarchy as well.
Yes. Well, California. So the University of Dallas, it's an emerging institution. And, let me read from the Texas Tribune. And the title of this is, "A Texas University removed its unique public billboards after students used them to share thoughts on Gaza war." And I guess that's what we're calling it now, the Gaza war. The University of Texas at Dallas replaced 3 boulders known as the Spirit Rocks with trees, citing extended political discourse. Students say the quirky public square is a frequent venue for political messaging. And I don't believe that the story explicitly comes out and says it, but it sounds to me that the administration at the University of Texas at Dallas thought that the best way to deal with any controversy that might erupt from competing voices on campus is just to remove the source.
I want to see what these original. Okay, now I'm gonna have to Google this. So what do I? UT Dallas.
Put UT Dallas Spirit Rocks.
Spirit Rocks, and
they're not remarkable.
Images.
They're just big rocks. I wouldn't even call them boulders necessarily.
Okay,
they wouldn't excite anybody who likes to climb these things.
Let me see.
But they get painted and repainted. That's the idea.
Okay, so. All right. So they're just like these rocks that people like. It looks like they spray paint them or something, and they just put a message up.
Yeah.
Okay, and students are free to write whatever they want on these things?
As long as they're up there, but they're not there anymore. Are you looking at the student government page?
No, I'm just looking at Google images of various rocks with stuff written down on it.
This is what I'm reading. The Spirit Rocks are available to be painted by individual students, sponsored student groups, or registered student organizations. The Spirit Rocks are located outside of the Activity Center near the Student Services Building. The suggested paintings on the Spirit Rocks include, but are not limited to, event announcements, words of support and congratulations, welcome notes, or creative endeavors. Now, this is from some time ago, so it doesn't explicitly get into political stuff.
Okay.
I imagine with the images, if they show some recently, maybe you'll get to see some.
Well, yeah, I was getting some. I definitely found some with the Palestinian flag and the Israeli flag on
and
them.
Apparently one after the other one is painted over the. It sounds like gang tags.
Okay.
That's working right now. So yeah, and this raises some interesting questions about, well, did the Dallas administration overstep its bounds? What laws would come in? I'm looking at some of these right now. Let's see. Hold on. Let's see. Spirit Rocks. I'm looking at all this. There's an Israeli flag. I see.
This Texas Tribune is a little disappointing. They have like a stock photo of kids walking around. Let's see. Kids walking around on their phone. I'm like, okay, what is this Spirit Rock? I mean, come on.
Opening shot there. Well, it could. I don't know.
Maybe they have
right now.
No, students walk through campus at okay.
The rocks are gone. They're replaced with trees. So this is what the Tribune says. For years, the 3 large lumpy rocks bedecked in bright paint announced events or bore symbolic messages at the University of Texas at Dallas, a cornerstone of campus life. Sometimes the messages were political, vote blue, sometimes not, welcome scholars. But Monday morning, students found the university uprooted their beloved boulders, known as the Spirit Rocks, overnight and replaced them with freshly planted trees. The rocks removal came weeks after student groups took turns painting pro-Israel and pro-Palestinian messages on their services in response to the ongoing war in the Gaza Strip. And it talks about the attacks and all of that. Student protests across the country, often accompanied by calls for an end to occupation of Palestinian land by Israeli forces, have prompted backlash by those who perceive these protests as anti-Semitic. Endorsements of Hamas. College administrators have since been tasked with navigating those accusations while not suppressing student voices. And that's not an unusual thing to see from time to time when controversial things happen, after 9/11 or whatever, after different, elections. In a Monday statement following the removal of the rocks, the university affirmed the importance of free speech and said the recent paintings related to the Middle East conflict strayed too far from the original purpose of the public message board. And there are a couple of other pages I kind of linked to elsewhere that discussed a little bit about, what it was about. And I guess it was just, have some kind of quirky, fun thing for students to do. But kids being kids. But also passionate about things. Spirit Rocks are not intended to be a display for extended political discourse, and because painted messages have been negatively impacting people on and off campus, our best solution was to remove them, read the statement. So again, in a second, what I'd like to do is to kind of look at a couple of other things that talk about how the courts approach this sort of thing. This is a public forum. Is it a limited public forum or not? The different rules that kind of apply for this. And I suppose it's sort of like, when you were a kid, pickup football game, right? People keep fighting. Some point, one of the parents is going to come in and just take the football, Now, of course, this tells me it doesn't necessarily mean you're not going to have extended political discourse, but it's just not going to be supported by the administration of the university.
Well, it makes me wonder if, in addition to them painting on it, were there people there, chanting, arguing and stuff? I think that would, I'm actually surprised that, it's actually a little tame in terms of just putting a message on. I would think that, I was imagining crowds of people like shouting at each other.
Maybe they were trying to prevent that from happening. I'm thinking.
Well, you got to wonder how do they decide, whose turn is it to paint on the rock and how long does the message stay up? They must have had some rule about that.
I think that it was pretty, let's see, hold on a second. Rules for painting the Spirit Rocks. So this is from the UT Dallas page. And let's see, and student government page.
Okay.
All individuals, groups, and organizations must supply their own paint. Only paint the Spirit Rocks and remove all painting supplies when finished. No individual group or organization is permitted to paint the sidewalk, lamppost, grass, or buildings surrounding Spirit Rocks. The individual group or organization will be held financially responsible for the cleaning costs associated with the violation of this policy. Spirit Rock paintings must be in good taste. Keep in mind that what's painted on the rock reflects on you and your organization. Paintings must be in accordance, that's not really answering your question. Excuse me. Paintings must be in accordance with the university's Handbook of Operating Procedures. Students found in violation of these procedures will be subject to discipline in accordance with the Student Code of conduct. Now, if you click on the link to Handbook of Operating Procedures, it takes you to, big statement of freedom of speech, expression, and assembly. And again, we can find traces of this in Education Code in the state of Texas, which, we can touch on in just a second. Just a statement that, we're into freedom of speech. We think it's a good thing. We're all free to express our viewpoints, but it doesn't say anything specifically about policy associated with the rock. I think I'm led to believe that it's simply up for grabs, because apparently part of what was becoming problematic was that, one group would come in and paint one thing, and an hour later, another thing, and then that's why I mentioned gang tags. One tags over the other.
There's nothing about any order or waiting list. So I guess maybe it is a potential flashpoint of people fighting over. Do they get to keep their rock?
It's interesting on this this page on Spirit Rock with the student government of UT Dallas. Editor's note, in November 2023, the decision was made to remove the Spirit Rocks. The information below serves as historical context. And again, they put trees there, so, I think that kind of suggests that they're not really planning on putting them back. Maybe they put them back someplace else, but I don't know. The group or individual painting a Spirit Rock assumes liability for any individual or member of the group or organization who may be injured. Student union staff will regularly monitor the Spirit Rocks, just as they monitor bulletin boards, to ensure that all postings fall within the above established guidelines. Now, what particular guidelines might they have violated?
This is on the student government page?
Yeah.
Oh, they got the Handbook of Operating Procedures.
Yeah. Now, maybe in the Handbook of Operating Procedures, we see a little bit more detail about specifics. I mean, we can certainly make assumptions about what those might be, but it's not making that obvious here. That's where I suppose we would look at rules, and this would be think about the training we went through. That was interesting. I like to actually talk about it with students too, because it's how free speech is applied to the institution. And I put a link to something called the Student Rights and Responsibilities, Student Expression and Use of College Facilities. So what are your rights as a student in terms of free speech, and what are your responsibilities? What's the administration's indication that perhaps you went a little bit too far? So I've linked to something just with a lot of other things. The Texas legislature will require our institution, Alvin Community College, to demonstrate that it's implementing certain bills. In this case, the bill was Senate Bill 18 from the, the 86th legislative session, the one that wrapped up in 2019 or met in 2019.
Okay, that's when I remember reading about new rules that were coming down. So these are state rules, and they were about an attempt to ensure some type of freedom of speech for students.
And be clear about it. Let me read through this. Now, the title is Alvin Community College's report regarding its implementation of the freedom of expression requirements required in Texas Education Code 51.9315. And we can look at that in just a second, but here's I guess this gives us a link to it here, but I got it linked separately. So here's the statement. The 86th Texas legislature passed Senate Bill 18, effective September 1st, 2019, to protect the expressive activities of public institutions of higher education. I think the Texas legislature was going through a spell where it was very concerned that there was bias in what speech was allowed and what speech was not allowed on college campuses, September 18th amended Chapter 51 of the Texas Education Code by adding Section 51.9315. Pursuant to the bill, not later than December 1st, 2020, each institution of higher education shall prepare, post on the institution's internet website, and submit to the governor and the members of the legislature a report regarding the institution's implementation of the requirement under this section. The following is Alvin Community College's report evidencing its implementation of and compliance with these requirements. So this is relatively brief. It's just a couple of pages right here, so you can walk through this a little bit. But the one thing that and one of the ways that they implemented, of course, was making us take that little online exam having to do with expression. And the one thing I remember looking at, and if you scroll down a bit, it says student expression and use of college facilities, and this is from December 16th, 2019. Yeah, you get it. This is for me anyway. I mean, I teach government, and we go through civil liberties and free speech and all that. And, all it says in the First Amendment is, Congress can't pass laws restricting freedom of speech. Well, the Texas Constitution goes a little bit further in terms of clarifying some types of restrictions or punishments that still you can get for exuberant use of speech. I don't know if that's the right word or not. But this gets into forum analysis. And that's what I started to think about with these Spirit Rocks, because it's on college campus, so it's not, it's public property in the sense that it's owned by the public, but it's not public property in the sense that everybody has access to it. People that are just hanging around for no good reason can be removed from ACC's campus for safety reasons.
Yeah.
But there's 4 types of public fora. What's plural of forum?
I would just say forums.
Forums. I'll say that too. Flora. Traditional public forum, designated public forum, limited public forum, and a non-public forum. Because again, when we talk about this in class, that is, I believe, it could be a non-public forum. We're in a public situation, but we're in a classroom. So if somebody starts going off, certainly you have the ability to say what you're going to say, but you can't go in a direction that disrupts what we're doing in the classroom.
Yeah. That's an issue of freedom of assembly. We have to be able to assemble to accomplish some sort of task.
Exactly. Which gets us into this area of, what do we mean by these things? And I'm still kind of puzzling through this because I'm not sure if we're necessarily talking about a traditional public forum or a limited public forum right here. Let me read a little bit through these. And again, where did you go to school again?
University of California at Riverside.
At Riverside. I had a friend from Riverside. Was there anything like that?
Rules about free speech?
Well, there would be, but some place where it was understood that you could just kind of go off and this is where you're going to be rowdy.
Oh.
Other than the football game.
I don't know if they ever designated anything like that, but there was definitely, space for people to hang out. Now, whether people took their microphones and megaphones and started making noise, I didn't really see that. We did have a bell tower where I would imagine, sort of the center of campus had the big clock tower.
Yeah.
Nice plaza around it. I would imagine that's where, activism would take place. I guess during maybe my time was relatively mellow. I just don't remember seeing any disturbance or anything.
I don't remember places like. I went to A&M for a little bit, a couple other places. I finished up at U of H, and I don't remember a designated place that invited people to, post messages. But again, this could be pretty much anything. Anyway, here, the traditional public forum. This includes locations such as sidewalks, parks, where members of the public have historically been permitted to gather and speak on any topic. An institution's property, and again, this is for ACC. This was tailored towards Alvin Community College. An institution's property is not a traditional public forum, with the exceptions of sidewalks, streets, and parks that are indistinguishable from surrounding city property. So I would imagine, that area that we have with the jogging trail, the soccer courts and whatnot, that's kind of, it's ACC property, but it's sort of indistinguishable from something that might be a park. It kind of is a park, So there it would be very difficult for ACC to put a limitation. Not that they can't.
So what, again, is a traditional public forum? Okay, so if the common outdoor areas of an institution's campus are deemed traditional public forums, what is a traditional public forum?
Yeah, a location like a sidewalk, park, where members of the public have historically been permitted to gather and speak.
Okay.
So like a public park. If an institution's property is deemed a traditional public forum, The entity may exclude particular content if that entity can assert a compelling governmental interest that is narrowly tailored to address that interest, standard referred to as a strict scrutiny standard. That's kind of like legal terminology saying it's very difficult to put a limitation on somebody speaking. The institution can also enforce viewpoint neutral time, manner restrictions to meet a compelling governmental interest if a sufficient number of alternative communication channels are available. In other words, it's very difficult. A compelling governmental interest means you better have a really, 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 really good reason to shut somebody up.
Yeah.
It's just a very high hurdle to clear. And if you can't clear it, then you get to, put limitations on what they can say. But now when it talks about something like viewpoint neutral, that means that what it is that somebody is saying can't be limited. Or if you're going to limit, I think this is part of what they were doing at UT Dallas, it's like either everybody speaks or nobody speaks. That's kind of viewpoint neutral. Now, what I'm thinking we have, because this made me think, okay, what exactly do we have here at ACC? A limited public forum is what I'm thinking, but elsewhere I see it listed differently, so maybe there's some confusion regarding that.
So traditional public forum, anyone could do a protest. So like if the lawn outside of ACC is considered traditional public space, public forum, then that's the green light for somebody to hold a protest.
I'd say that's kind of a gray area, but I'd say, let's say if they're on Mustang Avenue, Mustang Road, and they're on the sidewalk, you can do that. That's City of Alvin property, or at least ACC couldn't put a limit there. Now, I guess if you're going to start to bring in Alvin, that's a different sort of thing. You'd have to say that what these folks are doing is in fact actually dangerous to the public interest or whatever. Here, let's look at the designated public forum, because we would have some places, and it seems like that's what they were doing at UT Dallas, was saying, okay, this is a place where you can discuss matters of public concern. That's the language I'm looking at. A designated public forum is a forum that a college or university intentionally opens to the general public to discuss matters of public concern. When I read this earlier, I was thinking about board meetings. The general population can come in, and again, what gives them, especially somebody that lives nearby, the right to speak before the ACC board? Well, they're taxpayers. So that's kind of like your ticket. That's your your ability to petition for a redress of grievances.
And so those are designated public forums?
I think so. I think so. Once designated, an institution may enforce reasonable time, space, and manner restrictions. Okay, you got 2 minutes to say your piece. And once that 2 minutes is over, boom. Any content limitations are subject to the strict scrutiny standard described above. So again, you can't punish somebody for what they say before the ACC board or whatever board. Now, when you say strict scrutiny standard, if you're going to threaten somebody, that can raise that that can clear that standard. There's a compelling public interest to put a limitation on what this person is saying, I would imagine. Now, again, you'd have to prove it in court. Limited public forum. And this is, again, what I'm thinking about, what those spirit rocks might have existed within. A limited public forum is a forum that an institution opens to a particular group of speakers or for discussion regarding a particular topic. Because I think in some of what we were reading, it sounds like it was students and student organizations can do that. I don't think somebody from the community, could come in and paint something on those rocks. So that would make it limited. Within a limited public forum, limits on expression must be viewpoint neutral. Limits on it. You can't come in and say, well, I guess that's part of the issue right here. You can't come in, I'm pro-Hamas, I'm pro-Israel.
No blue paint on the rock.
Yeah, well,
there you go.
Well, that's an interesting thing to say, because then somebody else could come in and say, well, obviously there's blue on the Israeli flag, and I think Hamas is, what is it?
Green, red, and black.
Green, and black. Yeah. So you're not directly picking sides, but you're indirectly doing so. So I think you could probably make that argument. Let's see. Limits on expression must be viewpoint neutral and reasonable in light of the purpose of the forum. Now, that raises questions about, again, what did UT Dallas want with those spirit rocks? It seemed like, well, what's a spirit rock? What is, are you full of school spirit? Whatever. You want to have some fun with it. And again, somebody goes too far, and we just can't have fun.
Yeah.
Somebody takes the football, goes home. The government may impose reasonable time, place, and manner restrictions as long as these restrictions do not relate to the content of the expression. And that's probably the dilemma the school was in, too. On the one hand, you don't want to get yourself in legal trouble in terms of suppressing speech. And you have to be viewpoint neutral in terms of it, and so you're just getting rid of speech. It'll be interesting to see if, maybe those statements or painting or what, it finds another forum, another place to go. Maybe you follow this. To distinguish between a designated public forum and a limited public forum, courts consider two factors: the intent of the institution regarding the forum. That's why I mentioned, the statements in front of the board. That would be in my opinion, that would be a designated public forum. And the forum's nature and compatibility with particular speech. And I think when it says the forum's nature, what are we talking about? Here, with the Spirit Rocks, there's that one photograph. It's a little open area, within the campus, it looks like, with these rocks, and you'd come in and you'd paint on it.
Yeah.
And again, if you're talking about a board meeting, you're talking about a room you're getting into. And this non-public forum, the final one. If an institution is not open to public forum, it remains a non-public forum. Although limits on expression must be reasonable and viewpoint neutral, even within a non-public forum, an institution will have greater discretion to control the content of speech within such a forum. I'm curious if in a legal situation, legal context, that's what a classroom is.
Yeah.
It's a non-public forum. People can't just kind of randomly come in. You can, or maybe the campus itself. It's non-public, and again, public in the terms of ownership, but in terms of the function.
What's the difference then non-public versus limited?
Limited, that's an interesting question.
Non-public. I thought of
a forum that an institution opens to a particular group of speakers. For discussion, I don't really know. I'd have to stew on this for a moment. All right.
But then again, a classroom, it's not even a forum. I mean,
that's true.
Teacher could say, "No, I'm going to lecture. You're going to take notes," and that's it, right?
Yeah. I don't know. This is worth pursuing a little bit more. Nowhere here that I've seen so far do you really is this clarified. Now there's this, let's say, protected expression on campus under state law. An institution of higher education, including a college district, that's us, shall ensure that the common outdoor areas of the institution's campus are deemed traditional public forums. So we got that statement right there.
Yeah.
Permit any person to engage in expressive activities in those areas of the institution's campus freely, as long as the person's conduct is not unlawful and does not materially and substantially disrupt the functioning of the institution. And I'm curious if that last part is what UT Dallas, which I'm sure they would be impacted by this as well too, would use to be able to legally remove the rocks.
Yeah, I mean, I think they could legally remove the rocks. I mean, that's not stopping somebody. The real question is, can somebody stand there with a sign? And I think they could if it's a common area. This is a traditional public space. The school isn't obligated to put an object there for people to write on, and if they do, they could say, well, you don't know graffiti on this, right? They've got to have rules about graffiti. So, their defense is they can say, no, you're free to say whatever you want, but we're free to, put whatever buildings or structures we want on campus, and you can't make graffiti wherever you want. So I can't see any lawsuit moving forward on this, as long as the school lets people, protest on campus if that's what they want.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, they have control over the area. And you're right. Let's say they want to build something there. Well, they just get rid of the rocks because they need a building or whatnot.
Yeah.
But I'm just curious, in terms of managing speech on campus issues, you just remove these things. Now, again, it'd be interesting to see if those students on either side find other outlets for publishing their opinions.
Yeah.
So I guess we can just follow that.
Yeah.
See what happens.
And, maybe this is a good thing because, honestly, billboards, especially like these rocks, are you really going to make a compelling, information-packed argument to support your side? No, it's a bumper sticker.
Yeah.
Right? If you want to make a compelling argument, get out there and have a debate with somebody or hand out flyers where you can, make your case and provide more information.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, the administration has to protect the institution. And that seems to be how they decided to do so.
All right. So that's a hot topic, and we'll see if it plays out on other campuses and what sort of form it takes.
Let's do it.
All right.